And number three, and more importantly, let me state this for the record on national television. I believe that the Chargers are going to come to their senses sooner than later and fire Brandon Staley as the head coach of the franchise.
Rather it's the nagging injuries, or the tumultuous end of last season, or the fact that their head coach has been on the hot seat since the day he was hired. Whatever the reason is, the Los Angeles Chargers just cannot get over the hump. And the start to this season doesn't help. The Chargers are the only team in NFL history to be 0-2 and have 50 plus points and 0 turnovers through 2 games. And since 2000, only 18 out of 187 teams to start 0-2 have went on to make the playoffs. The Chargers have way too much talent on their roster to be sitting at 0-2. They have studs on both sides of the ball, and at this current moment, they're all just underperforming. I believe this season will fall on the shoulders of the NFL's third highest paid quarterback, Justin Herbert. Rather it's Derwin James, Joey Bosa, both Mike and Keenan Allen, or whoever else wants to get hurt. This team knows a thing or two about battling through injuries, and they'll have the same approach with Austin Ekeler being out for some weeks. Austin Ekeler's impact showed up right away. In week 1, Ekeler finished with 117 yards and a touchdown, and in week 2 with no Ekeler, they just couldn't get it going as they finished with 61 rushing yards. With Ekeler being out, this team is forced to go to the air even more, allowing defenses to have a light box and likely drop 6 or 7 in the coverage. So that means even if they know it's coming, Herbert in this passing game must carry the load. Justin Herbert and this team's offense have been stellar in the first 2 games of the season, coming in at number 4 in the NFL with 387 yards per game and 6th in points per game with 29. A lot of what Justin Herbert did Sunday was just taking what the defense gave him and getting the ball into his playmakers' hands and letting them do the rest. While that isn't Herbert's forte, this team is talented enough to stay in games without the big plays downfield. Herbert's average yardage on completed balls last week was 4.7 yards, and he still finished that game 27-41 for 305 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. This play defines what Herbert is to the team right now. He drops back and gets smacked on the head, but also forces him to lose his balance. But he manages to keep his eyes downfield and sees Keenan at the last minute with a one-on-one matchup and just gives him a ball that he can make a play on. Scoring 34 and then 24 points sure feels like you did enough to win those games. But yet, here they are at 0-2 and wondering if this star-studded defense will ever show up. I actually felt that the Chargers didn't play that bad of a game defensively. But once you hear some of the numbers, they may change your mind. Sunday was the first time since 2013 that Ryan Tannehill has completed 2 passes of at least 50 yards in a single game. This defense was just out of place and they allowed multiple big plays in the secondary, even though they were able to sack Tannehill 5 times. But it gets worse. In week 1 they gave up 536 yards, but we'll excuse that because of who the Miami Dolphins are. But in week 2 they gave up 27 points to a team that only scored 27 points or more once last season. And they allowed the Titans to break an 8-game losing streak. And it's not entirely on this defense, but the team is 0-2 and they've allowed 63 points, which is the 3rd most in the NFL. When you think of this defense, you think of a star-studded, hard to deal with, hard to score on kind of defense. But when you watch them play, it's kind of the complete opposite. And as good as I said this offense was playing earlier, well, the defense combats that as they come in at dead last in the NFL, giving up 438 yards per game. Now, I know it's the beginning of the season, but that's almost 500 yards a game. But again, outside of a late 70-yard bomb they allowed, I still think this defense did what it needed to do. They limited Derrick Henry to 80 yards on 25 carries. And although Ryan Tannehill only had 4 incompleted passes, they held him to 246 yards and just 1 touchdown. And here comes the silver lining for Charger fans. Your stars are playing like stars. Bosa racked up 2 sacks, 4 total tackles, and 2 tackles for loss. But none better than this sack here. The Chargers are going to run a little stunt action from Bosa in this wide 9. And as you can see, it works perfectly as Tui rushes through first and creates this pileup that allows Bosa to swoop inside untouched for the sack. And his counterpart Derwin James is also holding his own in the secondary, as he finished this game with 11 total tackles. But this play here shows you the importance of a team. The Chargers get a great rush inside, and they force Tannehill to try and get out of the pocket, only to run into big Joey Bosa as he gets his second sack of the game. And Derwin is one of the NFL's best safeties, and he made countless plays this past Sunday, like this tackle on Derrick Henry in open space, or bringing back old school football and cracking this receiver on a slant route. And if this team is going to turn their season around, it'll start with the defense. I hate to harp on early season losses, but the Chargers haven't exactly been a championship contending team. In 2021, they were one win away from making the playoffs, and in 2022, they felt like they needed as many wins as possible, and Mike Williams got hurt during the last game of the season. So every game truly does matter for this Chargers team. But switching gears back to this team's offense, the reason they can be so dominant is although they'll take what the defense gives them and dink and dunk their way down the field, they're still constantly searching for that big play. For instance, this deep ball here is against Tampa 2, which is just a cover 2 with the linebacker dropping back in the middle of the field. But the Chargers run 2 fly routes from the same side to put pressure on this safety, and it works perfectly as Quentin Johnson occupies his safety with a vertical on the seam, and that opens up Keenan on the backside for a window shot. But Keenan was Herbert's #1 target all day, and nothing changes here on this play. You can see the Chargers set up this bubble screen to Mike Williams. As Keenan slow plays this like he's going out to block, you see Justin Herbert pump fake, which draws the DBs down, and in the blink of an eye, Keenan shoots straight up the field for a wide open touchdown. Keenan and Mike Williams will have to help Herbie shoulder this load as they accounted for more than 50% of his yards this past Sunday. This Chargers team has all the pieces they need to make a Super Bowl run, and even though it's still very early in the season right now, this doesn't look like a Super Bowl team. Next game they have the Vikings, and their schedule isn't getting any easier. So how do you see the rest of this season going for the Chargers? And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to check this video out as well, which is all about the expectations I have for this Chargers team before the season started. Peace.